Hey everyone, this is Marbozir and this is Fallen Enchantress Legendary Heroes Let's Play. So, this is a turn-based strategy game by Stardock, and this game actually has a pretty interesting history behind it, which originally started in August 2010 with the release of Elemental War of Magic, which was generally considered to be pretty bad on release. At least it was widely criticized for many bad design decisions and such. And so it was released a bit later in October 2012 as a new game, Fallen Enchantress, which was much more polished than Elemental was, and it was actually free to anyone who bought Elemental War of Magic before a certain date that I can't remember right now. And this is actually a standalone expansion pack to Fallen Enchantress. So you don't need to have Fallen Enchantress to play this. This is completely standalone. This is currently the beta version. The game is scheduled to be released in May 2013 right now. But you can get access to beta by pre-ordering the game on Steam. So let's actually go into the game itself, and I'll start by saying that I'm by no means an expert on this game. I won't be talking about changes and differences between Fallen Enchantress and Legendary Heroes simply because I didn't play Fallen Enchantress all that much, so I'm simply not aware of many of the changes that occurred between these games. Anyhow, one thing that I should mention before I start, this is actually a beta version. As you can see on the bottom, this is version 0.51, so anything you can see here could be different in the final version of the game, which at the time of making this video is still at least 1 month away. So let's go into the game. These are all the races or leaders you can play in the game, which are actually quite different from each other. I'll go over them really quickly, but I won't be going in depth into all the abilities and traits all the leaders have. What I will say is that the sovereigns, as they are called in game, are divided between Kingdom and Empire, which are kind of opposing sets of leaders. That's the easiest way to describe them. You can also create your own leader, which allows you to customize all the abilities they have, the traits, weaknesses. You can also customize the appearance. I won't be doing this right here. I will be playing one of the pre-existing leaders. So let's actually have a look at some of them. This guy, for example, Lord Relias, gets plus 10% experience and has ability on all the units that allows you to take extra action. He also has some air and fire spells when he starts the game. He gets plus 1 accuracy per level, plus 1 spell resistance per level. He can train henchmen with heroes technology, who act like champions and can use equipment. And equipment is one of the unique features of Fallen Enchantress. Every unit in the game, including heroes, can actually use equipment, which you can both find in the game or buy from shops. And the various equipment types are unlocked with technologies that you research. So for example, as part of this sovereign, I have certain equipment types unlocked right from the start of the game, like this longsword, or this blade, or the leather cuirass, and I can buy these in a shop, then equip on my units. This is one of the fairly unique features of this game. So every race that you can play starts with different blood type, which is basically gives you different abilities. Like I said, I won't be going over all of these because then I would have to spend 10 or 15 minutes just going through every single leader possible, but they are quite different from each other. So this guy was getting plus 10% experience and rush, for example, and let's say this guy, Lord Markin, gets Iron Ear Blood, which makes all tactical spells, which are basically spells used in battle, cost 50% more mana, gets plus 30 spell resistance, plus 1 hit point per level, and his units get Guarded Strike ability, which is a defensive strike for half normal damage that leaves the attacker defending. Has lots of extra gear unlocked from the start, like plate armor, some extra weapons, and also gets minus 50% costs for weapons and armor, minus 50% upgrade costs, and the plate actually replaces chainmail armor. And he can also train golems, which are basically tough melee kind of units, mostly tank type units. So this guy is kind of a melee type guy with lots of defensive tough units. Right, so for this game I will be playing Lord Relias, who gets plus 10% experience and rush on all his units. Rush is actually quite a nice ability. I already went through all of these, so I won't be doing that again. Let's go straight into the game. I've been talking more than enough about the races so far. So this is the game setup, and one thing that's worth noting here that might not be obvious is the world difficulty. Basically, in Fallen Enchantress, the world is very hostile towards you. There are lots of monsters and lairs scattered around the world that you have to kill, and they will also attack you actively. And what world difficulty does is it determines the strength of these monsters. So if I set it to challenging, for example, as you can see on the tooltip, the monsters will start one level above their normal level. If I set it to hard, they will start 2 levels above their normal level. Then I can set it to expert 3 levels, or ridiculous 4 levels, and finally insane, when they will start at double their normal level. The world difficulty does not affect the AI. The only thing it does is it changes the level of monsters around the world. It does nothing to change how strong the AIs that you will play against will be. So I can set the world size from tiny to huge. For now I will be playing on small one because I don't want to make this game too long. And like I already said, I'm not an expert at this game, so if you came to this video expecting expert advice, then you will have a bad time. The map type, I can set this to ravaged, temperate, swamp, desert, mountainous. I'm just going to keep it unbalanced. This mostly affects the kind of terrain that you will get. I can also change wildland frequency, which can be set to above average, many, below average, balanced. I think I'm just going to set it to balanced. So, I can also change production pace, which basically affects how long improvements and unit training will take. I'm just leaving this on default. I can change quest frequency. Quests are basically events on the map that you can do to get experience on your heroes. So I'm going to keep it on balance, but I can set it to none, few, or plenty, or random. But I'm keeping it on balance here. So the rest is probably kind of self-explanatory. Monster frequency is pretty obvious, pacing is pretty obvious as well. This just changes the technology progression. Magic strength changes the frequency of magical shards around the map. So I'm going to keep this on moderate. Resource frequency is fairly self-explanatory as well. Random event frequency, this is kind of similar to quests. So I'm going to keep this on random probably, or on default. Right, these are all the settings. This is one more screen that you will have to set up before starting the game, which basically determines how many AIs you will play against. So this is a small map, so I'm going to keep it on free. Kingdom versus Empire balance basically determines what kind of leaders you will face in the game, since leaders are generally split into 2 categories, either Kingdom or Empire leaders, which basically means what kind of magic they use, either life magic or death magic oriented heroes, or AIs, sovereigns, or whatever you want to call them. So you can also set intelligence of your opponents. So the baseline level is challenging, as you can see on the tooltip. Challenging AI, with challenging AI, the AI gets no bonuses and is using its best algorithms. If I set it to hard, the AI will get slight economic advantage. So I'm going to keep this on challenging. And the surrender threshold can also be changed. I never actually played around with this, so I'm going to keep this on normal. And the victory conditions, there are 4 different victory conditions in the game. The conquest is fairly self-explanatory. You just have to eliminate all the enemies from the game. With diplomatic victory, you have to form an alliance with all players in the game. The master quest is a victory through the quest system existing in the game. As you can see on the tooltip, there's a special epic quest, Hidden Summon in the World. And Spell of Making is kind of the last technology or spell you can research on the research tree. You can also customize the opponents you will play against, but I'm not going to do that. Let's get started. This has been long enough already, I think. It's been, what, over 10 minutes and I didn't even start playing yet. So one thing that you can do in the game, this is kind of the backstory of my sovereign. I'm not going to read through all of that. So the one thing you can do that I quite like at the start of the game, yeah, my mouse is kind of going crazy right now. Anyway, the one thing you can do in the game that I quite like is, if you don't like your starting location, you can press Ctrl and N to reload the world. You can just generate a new one if you didn't like what you saw at the start. I quite like this, because if you get really unlucky with your starting location, you can just reload and get a new one. And I'm actually going to reload this a few times to get a better one. I'm going to explain what all of these numbers... Oh, there we go. This is a bit better. So, the one thing that's very important to keep in mind, especially if you're used to a game like Civilization, is that the tile yields that you can see right here, the first number is food, the second number is production, and the third number is essence. The first two are fairly self-explanatory, and essence basically determines the number of buff slots your city will have. You can cast spells on your cities, and in order to do that you need essence slots. So the one extremely important thing to keep in mind here when starting your cities is that city only gets the yield from the tile it started on. So if I move right here and start a city on this exact tile, you don't work all these other tiles around the city like you would in Civilization. The only yield that you get is from the tile you start the city on. So 4 food, 3 production and 2 essence is pretty decent. So I'm going to start my city right here. I would say this is pretty much the best case scenario that I saw. 4, 3 and 2. So I'm going to start my city right here. Right, this is my first city then. The first city can be started with your sovereign, and your sovereign is generally a unit inside the game that gains levels, can be given equipment, and he can't die. If you lose your sovereign in combat, he gets returned to your city and has to heal up and recover. It's not possible to lose your sovereign in actual combat. He will get certain debuffs if you lose him in combat, but we'll probably see that as I play later. It's basically a random debuff that you will get on your hero if you lose him in actual combat. Right, so there are a lot of things around the world, but one thing I already mentioned before I started the game. The world is generally very hostile towards you. There will be a lot of monsters and lairs around the map. And one thing to also keep in mind is that monsters around the map are very territorial. So if I move too close to some of the lairs, the monsters inside are actually very likely to attack me, especially if they are stronger. But before I start moving around the map, I'm going to take a look at my city real quick. So there are a few things that are kind of important here. This is my tile yield, as you can see, 4 grain, 3 materials and 2 essence. These are the exact numbers that you could see on the map before I started this city. So the way cities grow is you grow if you have a surplus of food. So you grow based on your surplus of food. As you can see right here, I have a large food surplus, and that determines my city growth basically. The more surplus I have, the faster my city will grow. There's also unrest in every city that reduces your production by this percentage. So right now I have 24% unrest in my capital city, which reduces my production by 24%. And my current population is 30. Every city has a level, as you can see right here. So this city currently has population of 30, but it's level 1. So the level of the city is not the same as its population, like it is in Civilization, for example. I will grow to level 2 once I get 20 more population. So I need 50 population to get to level 2, and this city is currently capped at 100 population due to food, as you can see on the tooltip. So I think that's enough about the city, and these are my two essence slots, as you can see, available enchantment slot. I can actually use them right away, because I should have some spells. This is my spell book, so I can select my city spells right here. And some of the spells I can cast is Aura of Grace, which gives all units trained in this city +1 initiative per essence. So this means every unit trained in this city would get +2 initiative, and initiative basically determines the order in which the units get their turn during tactical combat. Because this game does have tactical combat, which you will see a bit later. I can also use meditation, which gives me +1 mana per essence in Enchanted City. This is this number up here, and it's obviously used to cast spells. So this spell costs 0 mana, this one costs 20 mana to cast. And this is propaganda, which produces +2 Gildar per essence. Gildar is basically gold in the game, money. So since I have 2 essence slots, I can cast both meditation and propaganda on my capital. So you can see the icon right here, that's the spell I just cast. And now I can also cast propaganda to get some more money. And there we go. So now I can finally start moving around. So this thing right here with the green treasure chest icon over it is basically an event. I can move into this and get some treasure from it. As you can see, I got a hate stone that gives me +1 initiative. I can equip this on my hero. And speaking of equipment, this is my sovereign right here. Every unit has quite a lot of stats. I won't be going through all of these, but I think most of these stats are fairly self-explanatory. Initiative, as I already mentioned, determines the order in which the units move in tactical combat. Most of the other ones are fairly obvious what they do. So once I get more heroes, and I will get some very soon, I can actually move the equipment between them. And when I actually de-equip my sword, my stats will change, as you can see, or if I de-equip this. Right, so as you can see, now I have 20 initiative. And now I have 21 because the hate stone gives me +1. So let's check the other one, but that will happen on the next turn. And let's start some construction in my city. So this is an earth shard, and in order to actually take advantage of it, this is one of the resources on the map. The resources are marked with this yellow icon over it, so here's another one, which is a clay pit. But I can't take advantage of this because my city border doesn't reach that far just yet. But I can take advantage of the earth shard. So let's do that. Now I'm building earth altar in my city, which will take a few turns to complete. And now it's time to pick my research. Research in this game is basically divided into 3 different categories, as you can see on top. There's civilization category, warfare, and magic. I think these are totally obvious what they do. And each of these categories has its own tree, which you can see is actually fairly big. So this is warfare, and this is magic. I can obviously only research one technology at the time, in case that's not obvious enough. So I'm going to start with civics, because civics unlocks some really important buildings for my cities, like the bell tower for example, which reduces unrest by 10%. And since unrest reduces my production, this is actually quite important. So let's get some more treasure. I got token of the Sand Golem, which summons a permanent unit, a Sand Golem, so that's what I'm going to do. And one more thing I should mention is that every army can currently use up to 5 units. So when I engage in combat, I will use all of these units in tactical combat. This limit can be increased with some technologies. There's one technology fairly early that gives me +1 army capacity. Then I will be able to use 6 units inside this army. So I don't see any monsters just yet. There are some over here, just inside the fog of war. That's this purple icon. But I'm going to keep moving west for now, since... oh, there we go. So I can check the strength of this particular army, and as you can see, this one is classified as strong. I can also check the exact statistics of this unit, which in this case is Troll. It's level 5. It has 18 attack strength and 29 hit points. It's vulnerable to fire. Has -10 accuracy, plus 3 hit points per level, and regenerates 4 hit points per round. The monsters around the map are generally quite strong, and as far as I know, the monsters in Legendary Heroes are stronger compared to Fallen Enchantress. So I need to be really careful when I explore the world. I probably don't want to fight this dude, because if you look at my stats, they aren't that much different compared to him. I have 89 hit points, he has 67. I also have 8 defense, he has 10. And I have 58 attack. I could probably beat them, but it will probably be wiser just avoiding him for now. However, as I already mentioned before, monsters in this game are territorial. So if I move too close to him, or if I move directly next to him, there is a chance that he's actually going to attack me. So it's a good idea not moving directly next to some very strong monster groups, because if you do, you can have a really bad time as a result. Right, my Earth Shard is done. So now I'm getting +1 mana per season, which is basically turn. If you see the game referred to seasons, that basically means turns. So right now I'm on season 6, which is turn 6 in other words. So yeah, I didn't want to do that. There's actually one slightly annoying thing in the game right now. If you double click on your city, you will actually start automatically building the building that was selected here, because you will select the location on the map. And I have this habit of double clicking cities from certain other games. But what you have to do is to just single click the city, and you can use the options on the bottom left. So what I'm going to do right now is build a cleric, because that gives me -5% unrest and increases my fame. So fame is kind of a new concept in Legendary Heroes compared to Fallen Enchantress. Fame basically determines when you get new heroes. As you can see right here on the tooltip, this is the amount of fame my faction has accumulated, which represents how well known my sovereign is in the world. I can get fame by completing quests, building special improvements, like the one I just did. And I will get the next champion when I hit 3 fame, as you can see right here. So when I get 3 fame, I will get the option to recruit a new champion, which in this case will be my first one, not counting my sovereign. So let's keep moving. I want to start some kind of combat to show you the tactical combat. These are a little bit weaker, so I can go that way. There's also a quest right here, which is indicated by this yellow icon over it. The scroll icon or whatever it is. Oh yeah, this guy looks very friendly. I probably don't want to fight that right now. And as you can see, there are some variable locations for a city over here, because in this game you can't just start city wherever you want. You need an actual viable location for a city, which is indicated by the tile yields right here. So I could start an next city here, which would have 4 grain, 3 production and 2 essence. That's a pretty good location right there. So here's the first quest. The quests can actually be quite different, but usually involve some kind of combat and a bit of travel sometimes. So I won't be reading through all of this text really. I'll just scroll it down so you can read it if you want to, if you pause the video. So I'm obviously going to accept this, and now I have to recover this dude's stuff if I go over here. So that's where I'm going to go now. Hopefully there will be some combat, since I want to show you the tactical combat in the game. Right, so now, this is another very important concept in the game. Once your city grows to level 2, you can pick what kind of base city type this will be. There are 3 general base city types, which in short determine whether this city will be focused on money, on research, or on military. So if I pick base fortress, which is the military focused city, I will get +1 level for units trained in the city, +2 research per turn, +8 production and +2 gold per turn. I'm just going to call Gildar gold because I can. If I pick base conclave, which is research focused city, I will get +3 research per turn, +2 production and +2 gold per turn. So as you can see, I will get 1 more research per turn if I pick conclave compared to fortress. And if I pick town, I will get +1 zone of control, and +1 zone of control basically means my border will expand. +2 research per turn, +2 production, and +4 gold per turn. So I'm going to pick town for my first city type, since I want to focus on my economy the most. There we go. One thing that's also worth mentioning when it comes to cities is that I can train pioneers. This is the settler of this game basically, and pioneers can be used to start more cities, but they can also be used to start outposts. So if I don't want to wait for my city border to grow this far, I could train a pioneer, build an outpost next to this, which would then give me zone of control around this. And if I build an improvement here, a clay quarry, the resource generated by this would be sent, it would get connected to my capital basically, to the closest city. Outposts can be very useful in the game if you want to take control of some resources but you don't want to start a city there. Right, so I can't check the strength of this guy, but I'm going to attack him. This is part of the quest. So now I'm going to go into tactical combat. Oh wow, yeah, he's actually pretty damn strong. Let's check his stats. He has 40 hit points and he looks quite nasty. Yeah, so since this is beta, as you can see, some tooltips are actually not there right now. Okay, this guy is quite tough. So in combat, I move my units in order, which is determined by their initiative. You can see the exact order in which the units will move on the left right here. So right now my sovereign has his turn, and after him my sand golem will move, then the fire elemental will move, and then my sovereign will move again. So, oh, and down here this is my rush ability, which is part of my sovereign. This is one of the abilities that I had as part of the race I picked. I also have haste spell, which gives +3 initiative to target unit, guardian wind, which gives +50 dodge versus ranged attacks to all my units, or burning hands, which does 4 fire damage to 3 adjacent enemies. I'm just going to move next to this elemental and hit him in the face. Yeah. So this is going to be quite a tough fight, as you can quite clearly see. Right, there's not much point using Impale because there's no unit behind this. And one more concept in the game that's very important to keep in mind is swarming, or I think that's what the game calls it. This basically means if you have multiple units adjacent to the enemy you're about to attack, they will all assist with your attack. So right now I have 2 more units adjacent to this elemental and I'm about to attack with my sand golem, which also means they will attack the sand golem as well, as you just saw from the animation. But I'm not sure if I can actually beat this dude, he's really tough. I can use Crushing Blow, which uses a 28 attack, but makes me lose my next action, so I'm going to do that. There we go, 16 damage there. Hopefully I'll get kind of lucky and win this. Okay, he's almost dead. One more attack. Come on. Yeah, I lost my sand golem. So I need my next attack to kill this dude. He has 1 hit point left, as you can see in bottom right corner right now. And he's dead, but this was extremely close. And now I got 11 experience from this fight, and I also got a level up. And since I got level up, I can now choose the base hero type that my sovereign in this case will use for the rest of this game. This is a really important choice, because as far as I'm aware, you cannot change this, which you get told right here, as you can see. Choose carefully, as this will be your unit's path for the rest of the game. You can't check what exactly you get for each of these until you pick them, you just get the generic description below. But I think I'm going to go with Mage, because Mage allows you to summon some extra units in combat. Some of them have healing spells, and I quite like that. So I'm going to go with Mage for this guy. So I recovered the staff, now I have to return to the dude to return the staff and get my reward. So let's go down there. I don't think I can actually check my mage tree. Oh yeah, I can, there it is. So I get the general tab, which are the generic traits I can use regardless of what kind of hero I picked. So I can get extra experience trait, as you can see right here. I can get plus weight capacity, which basically allows me to carry more equipment without getting penalties. I can get plus 8 hit points. I can get plus initiative. I can also get a trait that allows me to equip additional accessory. I can also get extra spells, and some of these actually require me to be a certain minimum level, so I can't unlock Fire Mage, for example, until I'm level 5. And this is the mage tree. I won't be going through all of these, but some of the spells worth noting are these, for example. I can summon a wisp in combat. This is used, and this summons a wisp which has some healing spells. I quite like this one. I can summon a Lightbringer. I can summon Ice Elemental. I can increase levels of my summons. And this is one of the reasons why I picked Mage. And this goes all the way to here. And the last summon spell I can get is Grave Elemental at the end of this. Or Delin the Pyre of Men, or whatever, for 3 actions. And some of these can be used on the strategic map, and some of these can only be used in tactical combat. But even if this says strategic, you can still cast it during tactical combat only. Anyway, let's finish this quest real quick. So, oh yeah, now I can choose my trait. So I'm going to go for Summon 1, because then I will be able to pick Summon Wisp on my next level up. And there we go, now I hit Fame 3, which will allow me to recruit additional champion, or my first champion in this case, I'm not counting my sovereign. And I have a choice between these 2 guys. So this guy on the left has some water spells, which gives me a strategic city buff for +1 research in Enchanted City, or tactical spell which reduces initiative of targeted units. He also has Amerian Blood, which gives him +1 dodge per air shard, +1 initiative per fire shard, +1 spell mastery per water shard, and +1 spell resistance per earth shard. That's quite interesting. I have one earth shard already, so I would get +1 spell resistance as an effect. He also has Soul Spark, which does 2 damage and +1 damage per level to the target. And he has Command, which allows the target unit to take its next turn immediately. That one is quite interesting. I quite like that. And this guy on the right has some fire spells. I got some of these already on my Sovereign. Altarian Blood, which is exactly the same thing as I got. And Revenge, which gives him +1 attack each time this unit is struck in battle. I think I'm going to get the guy on the left, because I quite like this command thing. That might be very, very handy in some fights. And it would be nice getting this inspiration spell for extra research. Okay, I'm going to grab this guy on the left. And now he's right here, so I'm going to merge him with my army. And I think this is a good moment to finish this first part. It's been almost 40 minutes now. So I'm going to continue playing this game. I'm not sure if I will finish this entire one. This video is kind of a first look at the game. But I am going to continue this. Let me know in comments below if you'd like to see more or a lot more. But for now, this is over, and I'll see you next time.